Hey guys, welcome back to Days with Delia. I am excited for today's episode because we are going to be talking about relationships, affairs, and rebuilding trust. So I had a viewer write in and she said, "Hi Delia, I'm happy to hear of your new channel as I would like to tell my story to a neutral person and receive your thoughts. I'm with a man that I've known for over 15 years through his relative and we have now been together in a 3-year relationship. Prior to this relationship, I was having an affair with a married man for over 8 years and I'm ashamed to say while I was married. I have been divorced now since 2017 in which my ex-husband and I grew apart after our children left to pursue their careers. So I can say that our affairs played a part. So I'm assuming both of you kind of had affairs. Getting back to my current relationship, needless to say, it has been a bit difficult. He relocated to my area and that's when we decided to make our friendship into a serious relationship. But then the woman who he had been with was with child. According to him, he had planned to move on because they did not have a good relationship, with her constantly putting him out and making him leave. It was back and forth with them, as he tells me. He's the type of man that is involved in his children's lives. That's good. So when the baby visits with his mother, I have to leave the house for the duration she stays. Also, he's not trusting in me because of the affair I was having and of all the experiences he's had seeing women being unfaithful. I really love and care for him because he deserves someone that is genuine and regards his mental and emotional health. I have male friends, platonic relationships. One decided to text me one morning as he was getting off of work. Well, that started a snowball of events. I had to give him my phone. He saw things that he shouldn't have seen, and those things I completely forgot were there. We are now at this point where he has absolutely no trust in what I say, and when I try to explain myself, he's not having it. I have only been with him despite him thinking that I haven't through the photos that had been taken and that he saw. I feel at this point, and I have expressed to him that we're both going to be miserable because of no trust, and I'm not going to be able to do anything about being accused. Yet when I want to discuss the matter of his child and mother coming to visit and I have to leave, it's no negotiation and not discussed. What do I do? So this is obviously a really tricky situation. Trust, of course, is such a big part of relationships. But I really think for you, there's kind of 3 main areas that I would look at. So the first is looking into your last marriage and the affair and what kind of caused that. The second would be looking at your current relationship and really trying to understand, is it working for you and does it have the potential to work for you? And then the third is around trust and how, if possible, to rebuild trust, regardless of whether you stay with this individual or whether you find a different partner in the future. So as I mentioned, the first area is kind of to look back at your first marriage and to really understand what went wrong and what about your emotional needs weren't being met in the relationship that led you to end up having the affair. Take some time and really try and reflect. Don't look just at the surface things. And how you might actually look at it is to really try and understand like what you got from the affair that you weren't getting in the relationship. What did you get emotionally? What did it make you feel that you weren't getting in your marriage? I personally think that when women cheat, it's quite different than when men cheat. And I think for a lot of women, what ends up happening is they're in a relationship where, and you can tell me if this relates to any of you, but I think a lot of times women get into relationships where at the beginning it seems kind of exciting. There's a lot here and they feel special, but then over time, their significant other doesn't really see them for who they really are. They don't really see who they are at the soul level and appreciate them for who they are. They don't see their special qualities that make them them and appreciate them and value them. And essentially, the woman ends up not feeling valued and special and cared for and even liked for who they are. And that feels terrible. And hence, that can lead a woman to end up trying to seek that from another type of relationship. So really try and look deep down and understand what is it feeling-wise that you weren't getting from your relationship. As you do that, I just want to mention that one of the complications I've seen a lot just from friends, families, people of all ages, is that really trying to understand what a healthy, emotionally connected relationship looks like is very hard to do if you've never had one. It's very hard to do if your parents didn't have that type of relationship. It's really hard to do if you didn't experience vulnerability and support and consistency as a child. It basically wires you to be very confused about what true healthy relationship looks like. And this is problematic, obviously, because then you end up in a relationship and then you don't really know what's going wrong or something just feels off. And then it ends up translating to, I don't really like this person anymore. But actually underneath that there's other things that are going on that are core needs that are essential in a relationship that aren't being fulfilled. And some of the things that are required for that to be in place are emotional maturity, connectivity, vulnerability, a willingness to grow, an ever lifelong desire to be the best version of yourself and to continue to improve. And I think that that applies in a relationship. So if any of that resonates with you, I can recommend a book. It's called Attached. It is such a good book for really understanding what a truly healthy relationship can look like and what the other versions of connectivity can look like. And I'm sure you will see yourself in that book. I'm sure everyone who's had relationship issues will see themselves in the book in one way or another. So it's a very good book. I will link it down below, but you can also, if you have a library card from your city, you can add it into like the Libby online library access. And you might be able to read it for free. That's what I do for a lot of stuff. I think it's really important to look at your last relationship and really truly understand, because this was substantial. This was a marriage. And like what was missing in that, and then track that all the way back to your childhood, which you'll be able to do from reading that book. And this is really important because this is kind of like the foundation of all your relationships, this one and your last one, and going forward, what you might do. And it's really important, as you'll see to come. So the next thing I mentioned was looking at your current relationship and really trying to understand, is it working for you? Will it be enough for you? Is it the right thing for you to do to stay in it and work at it? And I think there's a couple different things that play into that. And the first is actually really to understand what that healthy relationship should look like, to trust your gut that it will give you signs if it doesn't feel in this way, and to know what that looks like. So this looks like someone who sees you for who you are, who sees your soul, who loves you for who you are, who cherishes those qualities that make you, that make you special, who likes to talk to you and spend time with you and will listen to you and cherishes the time that you guys have together. So then the question is, does your relationship outside of the complications that you mentioned, does it match up to that? And in my opinion, most don't match up to that. And from there, I think it takes a lot of time and dedication and effort and work to get to a point where it actually feels like that. That's the type of relationship that feels safe and secure and loving, and where you will never look outside of the relationship because you're kind of getting everything that would fulfill you within the relationship. So if your relationship is in line with that, then you can disregard the next little part. But if it's not in line with that, where you don't have that mutual connectivity and, strong admiration, and you feel very liked and appreciated for who you are in the relationship, and it goes both ways, then the next question would be, is there the willingness on both your ends to work towards it? And you'll see why this relates into trust in a little bit. But if that's there, that's so powerful. If there's that openness and willingness to grow and have that cohesive relationship and work on rebuilding the trust and all that, that is so powerful. Now, I know that you mentioned that he has a child, and when the child and the child's mom come over, you have to leave, and that there's no real discussion about it. So clearly it bothers you. Clearly you try to communicate about it, but for some reason he shuts that down. That is probably indicating that he has a little bit of a trigger around that. Maybe something around being controlled. Maybe it's something around how he views his role as a father, or maybe his role as a man or the head of his own household, or whatever it is. Like, that's something that he would have to look at. Now, I guess my question would be, like, is this a common thing that occurs across various topics, not just the topic of his child and his child's mom coming over? Does this happen across the board for anything serious or any big decision where you disagree with something? Do you feel like you're able to communicate about it? And when you communicate, is it listened to? Is there a dialogue? And if not, is he willing to work through that with you? One of the other questions I had was, I know that you were married in the past, and is that something that you want for your future? Like, do you want to be married again? And do you see the person that you're with currently as your lifelong partner? And if so, he should be willing to work on it, and you should be able to work on it. And obviously it is a problem because you ideally would want him, his child's mom, and the baby to be a family. And if you guys have a long-lasting relationship where, you might get married or you might be together for a really long time, there needs to be that connection in the family and the togetherness, and or in the very least, the openness to have the discussion. So do you understand what it really means to him for why you can't be there? Does he understand the depths of what this is bringing up in him? And does he understand what he's compromising by not letting you be there? So I think just like more open communication around that topic needs to be had. If you're planning to be with him for a lifetime, if you're planning to get married, if that's his plan as well, then you have to get to that point and then operate as a family, and there needs to be more cohesion going on. It's not really okay for him to just say, this is how it is and you have to leave when this happens. That's very uncomfortable. And unless there's really good reason and you can understand the true vulnerable reason behind it, I think there's still work that needs to be done where you both need to be able to express what it's bringing up for you and where it's coming from. And of course, I think like a good couples therapist would be able to help you work through these things. But I just want to say, like, couples therapy is very much so what you make it to be. So if you go in and you just say, here's our problem, we have this problem with communication or there's a problem with trust, all you're going to work through is coping skills. But if you go in and you say, here are our true heart of heart problems that we have, the true things that have happened in our lives that led us to being who we are and the way that we are in this relationship, and this is how it's coming up, that's when you can really turn things around and show up as the best version of yourselves and create that cohesive relationship. But that takes a lot of effort and work and dedication. So it takes two people who are equally as willing to do that. So that's another question for you. It's like, are you willing to do that? Is he willing to do that? And that can just be from starting to read books together and connect over certain things and like wanting to grow and have that type of relationship. Or it can look like going to a couples therapist, or it can look like, you two just sitting down and actually having those vulnerable conversations. If that's met with defensiveness or anything super negative, I think that you'd probably need some additional help, whether that be reading books or a therapist. Now, the next part would kind of be, okay, so you decided you want to stay together. You're both willing to work through it, but you clearly have this issue where he has no trust for you based on your actions in the past and based on what he's seen in other women as well. And this is a really interesting one because trust is really hard to build back up if it's broken. And it seems like he's already a little bit untrusting before you. And then even from some of your experiences, it's taken even more of a hit. When it comes to having that trust in you, I think it breaks into two things. So like one is the morals. So what do you view as actually being right and wrong? Which I think you and me both, we probably have the same sets of morals around relationships and affairs and stuff like that. Like you already know what's right and wrong for yourself. And then the other half is the conviction around the morals and how much we want to stand by our moral principles and how much we're willing to put on the line to stand by our morals. That's where that first part of looking at your last relationship, like what made you compromise your morals in that situation? Understanding how you rationalized it is so important. Anytime that any of us do anything that's a little bit immoral or that compromises our ethics, anything, we end up rationalizing it in some way. That's you, that's me, that's everyone. So like in this particular instance, like look back at your past and really think for yourself, like how did you rationalize it? And then I think there's a step around what did you learn from that experience? What did you learn about how that made you feel about yourself and who you want to be that makes you confident that you would never do it again? What did you learn from that experience that can help to solidify your moral stance on why you wouldn't put yourself in that situation in the future? So if you look at your last experience, your last relationship, was there anything that you could do to prevent yourself from taking that action? Could you and have you improved your communication skills around it? What about getting in a relationship with someone that doesn't provoke whatever that insecurity is or whatever that feeling is that leads you to have the affair? Is there something about that experience that you've reflected back on and you've said, I would never do that again. I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't like who that makes me to be. I want to be a more principled person. I don't like, if you're religious, I don't know, like something linked to maybe God and like what God might think of you, or what is it about the shift from then to now that you've learned that makes you think you would never do that again? And a few little bullets on that. Do you own up to the reasons that you justified in doing it? do you genuinely feel remorse for the actions of doing it? Because I know you said the word, like, I feel ashamed. So do you feel remorse? Not even necessarily remorse to your ex-husband or remorse to the significant other of the man who was married. But if nothing else, just remorse to yourself for compromising your own morals and what you stand for as a person. From that experience, and these are kind of some activities that you might do, but like, and reflect on, but from that experience, what changed in your mind from then to now about your life or about how you see yourself that would stop you from going there now? Like, has there been that development? I know in the past for myself, when I've done things that have compromised my morals, it's like, I knew I would never do that action again, because after I was like, that action in that situation, I don't ever want to repeat. I don't want to be that person. I'm not that person. I was doing something I knew wasn't good, and I'm not going to do that thing again. Like, I was so determined to not repeat, whatever that thing is. And I think that only comes from awareness. That only comes from looking back and seeing, how did I get into that situation? And how can I never be in that situation again? So kind of like along the lines of, what kind of person do you want to be? And how can you go about ensuring that you will always hold yourself to that standard? And the reason I kind of broke all those out is because I think a lot of times when people have trust issues, if they see that type of reflection, that type of honesty, that type of admittance to oneself about the type of situations, the things that were missing, how you justified it, how it's not okay, that you wouldn't want to do that again, that you wouldn't want to end up in that situation, that you've grown in these ways. If you really show the genuine growth and the emotional maturity in that way, and owning up to all of it, not just the actions, but like the reflection, because that shows like, okay, yes, that is an action that I did, but that doesn't mean that I'm bad. That doesn't mean that I would do it again. And here's how I'm growing from it. And I think that's how trust can kind of get built back little by little, and then illustrating through time that that's not who you are. I think another piece that might be important as well, I'm not sure if you have like religious faith, but repenting, I think, can go a long way as well. If not to God, maybe it's just repenting to yourself for doing that thing that probably doesn't make you feel that great about yourself, because I know you said you felt ashamed, and really just feeling that remorse and feeling bad and just really repenting for the actions that you took. And I think that can go a long way at like healing that piece. And then I think, the other half of repenting is like, creating that plan for how you won't do that again. So that's kind of like on your personal side, but I know that you mentioned there was another piece of your story that was about platonic male friends. I think that one of the things that would be really important is really to look at and be honest with yourself. If there is something from that friendship that you're getting that you're not getting from your relationship, but that you should be getting from your relationship. So is there additional support? Is there intrigue? Is there any kind of feelings that you've had that really add to you, but that you should be getting from that healthy, secure, main relationship, significant other relationship that you have? The other question would be, is this a thing in the past where platonic male friends you've kind of crossed a line with platonic male friends, where sometimes they don't just stay as friends? Or have you always been like super, like, they're my male friend, they're just going to be my friend, I've never crossed a line, I've never liked them or seen them in that way, I don't get anything from it, I don't really feel anything from it, maybe they're just part of my additional support system, maybe I see them a bit like family? Only you can really know that. And I think that there is an element of when it teeters on the other side of like, actually, like, sometimes I have crossed the line with male friends, or I get some feeling, I get some additional emotional something from these male friends that I should be getting in my relationship, then that becomes weird. And then that becomes a little bit problematic. I would then just say, is that something that you could recognize, like what you're getting from that and what you're not getting from your main relationship, and where you might be able to work with your partner to fulfill that area that might need to be fulfilled. And that would be, again, through like that communication, that open honesty, that connectivity that says we want to work together, we want to be together, we want to be together for life, and we want to try and have the most healthy relationship. And if that's the case, then I think you might have to make some sacrifices on the friend side. But in a way, for me, like, I would really want to see that thing that you're getting from it being grown in your relationship as well. So I really think that trust can be rebuilt. I think that it really, just in summary, comes from reflecting on your past, understanding why it happened, understanding how you don't don't want it to happen, elevating your standards, wanting to stick to that standard, and then creating a environment and a dynamic and a relationship for yourself that is healthy and that gives you all the things that you actually need, that wouldn't lead you to have that affair again. And I think through that growth, trust can also come. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you said, what should I do? I think reflect, understand what a healthy relationship is. See if your relationship is what you want it to be. See, more importantly, if your significant other is willing to do the work with you to get to the point of having that healthy, connected, open communication, super fulfilling, super safe, super secure relationship. And if that's the case, then you can take some of those additional actions. Maybe work together, start reading books together, make it a point to aspire towards that relationship. The problem, as I mentioned, is of course that like unhealthy relationships are not just born from unhealthy adult relationships. They're born from unhealthy child relationships, unhealthy child examples. And the act of trying to repair that adult relationship is usually really painful and hard because it is linked to those things that at our core make us hurt and make us dysfunctional and make us do things that we don't even want to do, or that hurt us or that hurt other people. And I think that goes both ways. And so the most important thing is just to see, can you understand what you need for yourself? And that will make you feel secure and safe and healthy. And then holding your partner to that standard and holding yourself to that standard as well. If there's not so much of that willingness on his end, if he's stubborn, if he's closed off, if he's shut down, if he's super defensive, that's okay if he's willing to work on it. But if he's not, and he's just stuck in his way, the first step, because obviously it's hard to leave relationships, but I think the first step is to just work on yourself and really understand for yourself what you need and what would be healthy for you. And then from there, things will blossom. You'll start seeing things super clearly with your relationship. You'll start seeing exactly what you need. And then it will be super clear for you what you need to do one way or another. Again, I'm just going to recommend the book attached. I'm going to link it down below. Check out your library. Check out the audiobook. Sometimes they have free trials. Very, very, very good book. Have him read it as well. And yeah, I hope that this gives a little bit of a different perspective. I know a lot of times when we talk about these things, just as women, it just ends up being like, oh, you did this, or oh, he did this, or how can he do this? And I think it's deeper than that. I think that it's more nuanced, and there needs to be more transparent conversation. There needs to be open communication, and you both need to respect each other, hear each other, and get super vulnerable to be able to grow together and hopefully have a good relationship. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you'd like to write in, you can send me an email at dayswdelia@gmail.com. Have a good day. Bye.